Please like and leave a heart. Please.
There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vidor Locksmith Show. I'm your host, David Gibson. So glad you guys could join us here on this amazing Friday where we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas industry. One interview, one technical presentation, and one technical screw up at a time. Please let me know, guys, whatever the technical screw up of the day might be. We'll get it handled as quick as possible and then just get on with the show. Thank you so many of you for joining us last week. We had Paul Pastusik on the show last week. Had an absolutely amazing episode. Talked about a lot of things regarding transient events while drilling. Posted the PowerPoint, I think, on Wednesday. So if you haven't seen the episode or seen the PowerPoint, go find both of those back on LinkedIn. Fairly easy to find. They're on my profile. We've got an absolutely amazing show lined up for you guys today. So happy to have you guys here with us. Is the audio coming in hot? A tad hot. We'll see if that makes a difference. Guys, let me know. If at any point in time the audio doesn't seem quite right, more than happy to be able to fix that to make sure things do come out sounding right. So as always, guys, let me know where you guys are watching from. Love to be able to give you a shout out here on the show. Today's show is brought to you by AIDRILLER. So be sure to put in hashtag AIDRILLER whenever you get the chance throughout the show. We'll be giving away some goodies later today. First and foremost, we'll definitely be giving away one of these cool 3D printed drill bits. This looks orange, but it's actually red. My glasses are not red, they're orange, but in this lighting and with the camera settings, it looks like they're matching up. Might even, if some of you are curious, I even made one of these little fidget spinner drill bits. That's pretty fun. Might give away one of those too. Just maybe, if we get a lot of people watching today. All right, put that back up there on the screen. Let's say hi to some people this morning. All right, Mr. Keith Stelter tuning in and watching. Thanks for being here, sir. Do appreciate that. Good morning, Dave. Have a great show. As always, will do. Mr. Pete Stetson, who is on baby duty, or soon to be baby duty, says good morning from Dallas, Texas. Wish he could be joining us next weekend for our Lemons race. But hey, not all of us can be race car drivers. Bobby Grimes says good morning from Houston. Gail Deering tuning in from OKC. Duncan Blues tuning in. There we go. Keith, Pete, everybody's putting in the AIDRILLER. Duncan does say howdy from Houston. John Dahl tuning in. Sir Richard Rayner tuning in says good morning from Houston. All right. Bobby Grimes once again hitting AIDRILLER. There we go. Everybody's getting this stuff. Michael tuning in from Abu Dhabi. That's awesome. Love to be able to see that. There we go. A lot of the AIDRILLER stuff. Thank you guys for supporting that and supporting our sponsors. It's what helps make this show possible. Ivan says, tune in from Argentina. Wow. Love it when we get an international audience. I feel like one of these days I'm going to travel outside of the U.S. and then be mobbed by a whole bunch of fans. But maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part. All right, guys. Like I said, be sure to keep putting in the hashtag AIDRILLER for your chance to be able to win some swag. Not just the 3D printed drill bit. Maybe we'll throw in a Gibson Reports hat or some of the other stuff that we got laying around here in the office. That's pretty cool. And then let's see. Hervé says good morning or good afternoon from France. Looking forward to hearing from John. Have a great show. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Talal says tuning in from Houston. And then Lord Bailey plugging away from Wyoming. All right. Let's go ahead and get this thing going. Here is, make sure I found it. There it is. There's a quick message from our sponsor today. And we will get started with the show directly after. I want to hear you whisper it. Girl, I whisper it. Girl, I want to hear you whisper it. All right, there we go. Like I said, put in wherever it's at. Gonna scroll back up here. Yeah, put it in hashtag AIDRILLER for your chance to be able to win. Thank you so much to our sponsors. I do want to be able to say, put this out there real quick because we did mention it. There will be no show next week because we have our race team, a couple of us, I guess, gluttons for punishment, are going to be racing a 24-hour lemons race next weekend in Angleton, just south of Houston. So if you want to be able to get your, let's say, a sticker from your company onto the car, get in touch with me, get the address, get something shipped to me right away, or bring it out race weekend, and we'll stick it on the car. Just wanted to throw that out there. It'd be a lot of fun. All right. Without further ado, our guest of the day, Mr. John de Wardt. John, thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, good morning, David, and thank you for having me, and good morning to everybody out there.
And I have to ask, what races are taking place this weekend out there at Road America?
None, end of season, but the end of season last week was 2 endurance races for the lemons up here. So that was the final. But yeah, people are renting the track and bringing in prototypes and high performance cars. I hear them running during the day and go look at the webcams and sometimes sneak out there and see if I can sneak in and watch them.
Well, you must be very close then if you can hear them from where you're staying at.
Yeah, I'm 8 minutes drive door to door.
That's wonderful.
But some of these big cars, I mean, some of the big cars, when they're going, they're churning out a lot of noise, you know? Sorry, it's music. It's not noise.
Yeah, it's not Laguna Seca where they have a problem with that. All right, John, let's go ahead and get started with today's show. You've been on the show before. It's been a couple of years, completely different setup than what we had before. But for our audience, can you give us a background on who you are and what you do?
Okay. So, yeah, I've been in the industry almost 50 years. Started mid-70s, mechanical engineer, grew up in the UK and left the UK in 76 and never went back to work there. Joined Shell. When I joined Shell, I went to work on a rig for 6 weeks as a trainee floorman because I said to them, I want to go and get some hands-on experience before going up the ladder. And then Shell at that time had a fantastic program of doing courses. So they took people like me as mechanical engineers and converted us into drilling engineers and petroleum engineers. So we studied production geology, reservoir engineering, drilling, muds, completions, all sorts of things, and got a hell of an education. And then went into the field as well site engineers. And my career in Shell, 15 years around the world, was basically drilling engineering, focusing on performance technologies, and then moving into contracts and doing drilling contracts, production contracts, and maintenance contracts. And in my early years, I ended up working with Chris Wolf on the on borehole surveying and looking at inaccuracies in that, and then publishing the paper that became quite a landmark in the industry, known as the Wolf and de Wardt systematic error model. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, I published on Shell's, the contract side of Shell's drilling in the 90s. Then I joined Forosol Forumer and was leading technologies and operations. And we did a lot of performance drilling, so incentive drilling, turnkey drilling, and designed and built a slim hole rig, which actually fit on 2 tennis courts. Amazing machine, drilled to 3,000 meters, high torque pipe. It was a collaboration with other entities as well, but it was a super product. And then I led a strategy development team for Halliburton and Brown and Root, basically building the foundations of what is now known as IPM, but this was back in 1993, and people weren't really that ready for it. It was a bit ahead of its time. And since 94, I've been an independent consultant. I've worked in 36 different countries. I've got over 80 clients. I've been on more than 300 engagements, and I get heavily involved in performance improvement, mostly around wells. The life cycle of wells is the big area that I look at, and a lot of it to do with drilling and completion, but also working with subsurface teams and production teams to basically produce better wells for them and better data. Of course, the good old borehole positioning stuff for subsurface modeling.
So with a obviously long and lustrous career, what has been the, I would say, the most fundamental change in the industry that has taken place from the time that you started to today?
I mean, if you go down to fundamentals, there's something I'm working on at the moment, and it's a presentation for AADE in Norman, Oklahoma, end of January at their conference there, their regional conference. And the presentation is titled Drilling Engineer of the Future. And what I'm looking at is basically when I started out in 76, me and my colleagues, we did everything. I mean, we designed the well paths. Steering was simple back then. You know, we were kicking off with bent subs and single shots. And then, hey, we got the downhole steering tools and then the side entry subs. But you start to look at that today, and the technology is so far more advanced, and there are more options that the world for the drilling engineer today is a much more sophisticated world than what we started out in. And with that, I see there's a big transformation needed in the role of the drilling engineer. And the other big aspect I see that you've probably heard me talk about is the life cycle of wells. We cannot continue looking at drilling and completion and production as silos. That just won't work in this world today. And we have to look at the life cycle of wells. So I see the drilling engineer's role has changed significantly, and we need to recognize that and redesign it.
So go into that a little bit further. Like, what exactly has changed with that position?
Well, so what needs to change is that they need to understand completions and production and intervention and abandonment, so you can drill better wells. So a well needs to be drilled, designed and drilled such that the completions people can properly use it. We've now got micro tortuosity. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, dogleg severity is dead. It's a meaningless measure for what we need today. And you get micro tortuosity, and you get borehole surveys every foot, so-called continuous surveys, and you can see things we never saw before. And what we know is this has a huge impact on the completions. And I think that drilling engineers need to cover that span of the life cycle of the well and learn what they need to know to be knowledgeable buyers across that life cycle. And then I think the integration is that there will be SMEs. And the SMEs, a lot of the SMEs today are in the supplier companies, in the service companies. And you've got to know how to buy from them and how to trust them to give you the right information to take the right decisions.
Is it because we've gotten to a point to where the amount of efficiency gains have started to dwindle, and the fact that to be able to continue making those gains, we need to be able to have knowledge across all of the different areas that we're impacting? Simple
answer, yes. I think, you know, when you look in North America and you look, I've seen wells that were taking 70 days back 6, 7, 8 years ago, or 8.5 days today. You know, we see these super fast drilling programs, and then there's still work to be done on the flat time. But basically, it's becoming highly efficient. And then I think as well that the oil business is competing in this transition that's going on, energy transition. And the transition is about affordability, reliability, and sustainability. And the oil and gas business gets a big score on affordability and needs to continue that to be competitive. It gets a big score on reliability. You know, you're looking at security of supply there, but also that it's there when you need it to be. It doesn't slow down at night or when there's no wind or whatever. And then the sustainability, and that's our biggest challenge, is being recognized to clean up the industry, but maybe even to see if hydrocarbons can be used more efficiently. You know, you look at hybrids and Formula One engines are 45% thermal efficiency, where the car on the road is only 25% thermal efficiency. So there's big breakthroughs that can come there. But in my mind, we're competing in a world against alternative energy sources. And we need to look at this full life cycle in order to generate the most value. It's not just about drilling fast. It's about more production, lower OPEX, lower operating costs of the facilities, of the field, etc. So I think that's where the opportunity lays to step up to that next level.
Do you think the industry is ready for being able to make those kind of fundamental changes in job roles or culturally to be able to adapt to what you're proposing?
I think it'll make the change. So there was a young engineer who was speaking on an IADC panel 4 months ago. And he said he'd moved, I think, from South America into the US land. And his responsibility was changed from being a drilling engineer to a drilling and completion engineer. So now he has his hands over that part of the life cycle. And then you start to see drilling decisions, design decisions being taken, which benefit the completion. So I think that is beginning to happen. I think the recognition is starting to come about. But yeah, the silos are hard to break down, but you can break them down. I've worked on that for over 20 years. And for me, the people are willing. It's the organization that's difficult. And in my world, it's about changing the organization architecture. So changing how people collaborate for a more holistic result. And when you get people together, service company guys, subsurface guys, production guys with the drilling guys, they can change a hell of a lot. It's a matter of getting them together and getting them aligned on a common goal, and they will do it. But most organizations, they're just not designed for that. Or yeah, anyway.
Well, I know that you've got a story about as far as rearranging the office. If you'd share that one with us.
Oh yeah, there was a company in Europe that wanted to get better integration between subsurface, so subsurface, the geoscientists, and the drilling teams, drilling and completion teams. So they put an asset, people working on an asset, they put them in a single corridor, and they alternated subsurface drilling, subsurface drilling, subsurface completion, subsurface completion, subsurface drilling. And they still didn't talk to each other. They went, it was funny, stand in the corridor and you saw the subsurface guys jump 2 doors down to go see the subsurface guy. You can't do it like that. You've got to build an organization architecture with a holistic common goal, and preferably a stretch goal, and go through the work to get everybody focused on this. And when they are, they can change the world. But if you don't do the homework to align them to a sensible, holistic common goal in an architecture where they can recognize their deliverables towards this common goal, I don't see you getting there. Or you'll be there way, way down the road, 20, 30 years after the rest of the people, just by trying to copy them.
Have you seen any organizations be able to successfully implement this?
Well, that's what I do as a business. I have a program, Lean Drilling, trademarked anyway. But what I did was I studied Tai Chi Ono. So you have lean manufacturing, which is actually a name coined by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the late 1980s in a global study on industrial manufacturing. They spent $5 million. They looked at North America, Europe, and Japan. And the story is that when they looked at Japan, they came across companies that were using the Toyota methodologies. And they basically said they do more with less. They get much higher quality of their products with less effort to build them, even taking into account the people in the supply chain. And one guy made the comment that they're lean. They do more with less. But really, lean has grown into a big consulting business, but it's basically describing the Toyota production system. And the Toyota production system was built by Tai Chi Ono. And he had huge obstacles to competition because he didn't have any money. And he changed the way that they produced the vehicles, and he developed Toyota into what it is today. And so I studied that and figured out key levers that could emulate not just lean, not the buzzwords. The buzzwords drive everybody nuts. and not just the Toyota production system, but more understanding Taiichi Ohno and what he did and why he did it, and therefore how he did it. And he was a guy who went to the shop floor to do things. He wasn't sitting in an office drawing organograms and stuff. And then bringing that in as a methodology through workshops and coaching to get people to transform their businesses, and the results are fantastic. And yeah.
Toyota's still around today, making headway. All right, just want to throw this in out there. Get a comment from Duncan Blue. Our industry rewards the wrong things. Drillers are mostly rewarded for footage drilled, breaking records, etc. We forget that the ultimate goal is to produce more hydrocarbons.
Well, I go back to drilling in the 90s, and Duncan's right. And we pushed this from Shell as a shift in responsibilities to get the suppliers more involved towards delivering the results that were aligned with the operators. So much along the lines as he's mentioning. And yeah, it got a lot of pushback, internal as well as external. I mean, internally, some guys didn't want to change. Now you see IPM has really blossomed into a large percentage of the global drilling business. I mean, it is quite significant, and companies are delivering. In the Middle East, they call them lump sum turnkey contracts, and they're delivering wells now for the customer. And so there's much more alignment. And then you see in the US that drilling contractors have added skill sets, often through purchases. And these skill sets, they're now applying to improving their drilling, but not only the speed of the drilling, but also the product, better steered wells, for example, and things like that. And they are getting rewarded for it. And a couple of their managers have stated publicly 50% of their operations of a significant number of rigs on land in US are on these, they don't call them incentive, they're benefit programs, and they are varied. And they won't tell you what they are. I asked a guy who made a presentation at ATCE, and he looked across at his boss in the audience. He said, I can't answer that.
Well, I would like to say, back to your point on, the lean principles, and I love the comment of being able to do more with less. And that's why I think for a lot of startup companies, it's almost better not to go the fundraising route. It's to be able to do what you can with what you have, and that you'll learn a lot of lessons going through that before being able to just dump money onto the problem. And then that becomes a problem in and of itself, is too much cash, too many available resources, and not learning some of the lessons that you need to learn as you go through. So just my little tidbit of knowledge I'd like to be able to throw out there.
2 cents there is the guys who have startup companies that they've recognized a problem, stepped out of the comfort zone in a larger organization, because that larger organization often didn't want to listen to them identifying a problem and wanting to do something about it. Starting up and then solving the problem, I think they're really beneficial. And they steadily attract money because they are demonstrating they're solving a problem. But there are a lot of startups out there that, especially in the transition stuff, that, they get tons of money and build organizations, and they still
With
don't
buzzwords.
get what they're doing. I don't get how their technology is going to translate into real life. And I don't get what they're actually delivering. They're not getting my money, that's for sure.
Here's another question, comment from John de Wardt. With so many reorgs going on with the purpose of doing more with less, it is common to end up with less. Okay. Missing the mark on how to build a company that can function with improved performance with less people. Why does the top level goals of a culture of performance end up getting watered down to the next solution of another reorg? John, thank you for your question.
Yeah, no, I should answer that. I mean, it's a rather sad question, huh? Because, yeah, I mean, I don't believe in organograms. I see them and you know, one guy's got more boxes under his box, another guy's got a bigger box than the other guy. The first thing that happens when an organogram comes out is everybody bitches about it. This is wrong, that's wrong, everything's wrong. What you got to do is look at organizational architecture. How is your organization going to work? You know, it's like an architect. An architect builds a house. He interviews you first. And, you know, a simple example is a kitchen. If your wife never cooks, or the husband never cooks, neither of them cook, and they're always eating out, he's going to design a really small, narrow kitchen, probably with a coffee maker in it. But that's about it. You know, maybe a small fridge. But if one of the couples, the wife or the husband, cook a lot and do large meals that take a long time to cook, and the guests show up before they finish cooking, they build a very large kitchen with a counter in it that everybody can come and sit there and they can come and participate in the conversation while the cooking's going on. So an architect is designing around what it is you want to accomplish with, my example is the room, the ultimate example is the building. And if you look at that and say, what do I want to accomplish with my organization, and design around that, and don't get too formal about it, then people can deliver what is needed to accomplish the company's goals.
All right. So now that we've kind of set this stage, if we can get the culture and organization, our archetype of the company set correctly, do you think that that would lead to a faster adaptation of technology in the industry?
Yes, I think so, because I think, yeah, yes, I've seen that where organizations need to change something. They need to deliver better wells, for example, and then they can recognize more easily which technologies can help them accomplish their goals, and then they can apply those. I've seen that happen. So yeah, and I think then you have a technology application for a purpose, as opposed to somebody brought you a new gadget or whatever and you think you should try it.
I guess finding new gadgets is always a fun thing, but maybe not always the right solution.
You need to be solving problems, David.
So
you're not
with
solving,
that,
yeah, go, sorry.
so with that statement, what are some of the big problems that you think we need to be solving as an industry?
That's an interesting one. Big problems to solve. So my big focus today is wells life cycle. We've got to get into understanding wells life cycle. Then you got to get into data, and you've got to get into a system that can accommodate the data across the well's life cycle. So the guy at the end, 30 years from now, actually has the data of how the well was designed, in order that he can take decisions about the final production process, like a blowdown, reservoir blowdown or something like that, and then a plug and abandonment, or even if it's reuse. But I think reuse is not going to happen that much. And then you go look at that and say, well, a lever today to accomplish that is digitization. So then you get back into data, and then you get back into sensors. And if you go to drilling, a lot of our sensors are lacking because they were never designed for the purpose we want to use them for today. They were never designed for analytics or even automation. And we need to get serious about upgrading it. The operators group for data quality did a fantastic job of identifying issues with rig sensors and coming up with an API RP, but it's very much focused on sensors achieving what their capability is. And it's now time to look at what sensors do we need in order to run this system properly and do better analytics and better automation. And I think there are areas where we don't have sensors that we could add sensors. And in drilling, particularly, even completion, there's areas where you're never going to be able to add sensors, so you have models. So then the question is, how good is the model at yielding the data I need at a point that I can't actually go measure it? And then it's consolidation of all this stuff together, which is sitting in different systems, different databases. There's one company really working on this, and I think they said they connected together 130 databases. I mean, it's a huge task because it was never designed from the ground up to be an integrated collaborative system. And if you can get all that working and then get the system to collaborate through the life cycle, you can drive massive value. But yeah, it's a big task.
What area do you think that would be the lowest hanging fruit for organizations to be able to start looking at first? Is it the, sensors? Is it the digitalization or digitization? Is it, just taking a step back and seeing if, does the data that we start with in, designing the well correspond and be able to correlate like on the database side with what's coming from production? What do you think, or where could companies, take their first step in being able to move in the right direction?
So it's a very complex business. And, we know that, we have to admit it. It's a very complex business. There is no silver bullet. You're not going to be able to just go do one thing and succeed. I think the fundamental answer to that question is go and educate yourself on what the heck's happening across the world today through the life cycle of wells. So you need to understand OSDU and what they're doing. You need to understand the operators group on data quality. You need to understand the latest work on WITS-ML. So you need to find out what the heck's going on in semi-disconnected groups that are all working on improving shareability and quality of data. And then you need to look at, where are the gaps in your system? Where is it quality? Or, some people say it's not the amount of data, but then it's the way you can process data. And of course, AI is going to be a help to the human, is the opinion most people are talking about, that AI can look through a lot more data than a human can, but AI should be the slave of the human. So I think you've got to look at it in a multifaceted manner. You're not going to win a you're not going to win a lemons race if you fix the engine, you don't put good tires on it.
Well, that might be the problem for our next weekend.
I'm sure you can get a sponsor.
All right, I want to be able to bring this one up before we get too far past. Brian asked, designed for purpose, how do we ensure leaders are sharing the purpose in a way that is organizationally beneficial versus self-fulfilling purposes? As you noted, more boxes or bigger boxes under a name. Great question, Brian.
Yeah, it is. I'd refer to Matt Isbell on that. He's got some great comments about it. It's unfortunate that people grow up in a siloed system. Even when people say the silos are gone, the history's still there. And people tend to look at it from their perspective. I think the key to the door are the asset managers. And if the asset managers can figure out the right questions to ask, they can get people to come on board with them, and then they need to communicate them. I've worked on my lean drilling program and worked with, doing a workshop and talking to the drillers, and everyone's in the workshop, right? So completion, even production, and subsurface guys. and then say to the drillers that you have a responsibility in the production from this well. And their immediate response, I mean, it takes nanoseconds. No, I don't. I say, yeah, you do. No, I don't. I say, well, if there's no production, there's no income. If there's no income, you don't have a job. Ah, okay. Then when the conversations really start between the drillers and subsurface, and you start to take an approach that let's drill fast to the top of the reservoir, and then let's drill smart into the reservoir. And when you do that, and the drillers are talking to production technologists, completion guys, the service companies involved, and they start applying best practices, yeah, they contribute to improving production. I seen it in Nigeria where 2,000 barrel a day wells quickly went to 3,000 barrel a day wells. And it was the drilling process. And the drillers were running it. But they had everybody on board giving them input as to how to go from 2,000 to 3,000 barrels a day. And then fortunately, the asset manager turned around and said, well done, guys. Well done, drillers, for helping us with more production.
Good gosh, that's a pretty big jump for the drilling side. Are you able to go into any specifics on that? Was it just well placement or?
No, it's a combination of things. So, I mean, it was well placement, but we were drilling wells like a sewing machine, and it was getting data on the fly. I mean, LWD data, designing the completion on the fly, or selecting the location of completion components on the fly, but also selecting the drilling process that minimized formation impairment. So while you drill in, you're damaging the reservoir, let's face it. So minimize that. And then it was about, once the completion had been put in the ground, was about cleaning up the formation and cleaning up the well. And yeah, 2,000 to 3,000 barrels a day. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I would say that obviously has very good returns on being able to do things. I don't want to say the right way, but a better way of doing them. I would love nothing more than to have some wells that do that, that produce that much. And with these very same wells, these were the fastest wells in West Africa on the Rushmore review. So best wells in the Rushmore review producing 50% more production. That's something to definitely hang your hat on. Okay, so I want to jump back into automation. Where do you think we're at now as far as automation versus the last time we spoke, which is, I think, almost 5 years?
Yes,
yeah, 5 years ago.
Very much more advanced. I think both more advanced in design and application, but also at a more rapid adoption process. And I think when you notice that the drilling contractors, and supported by their OEMs or on their own, because some of them are self-OEM, shall we say, they've taken it on board. And not only sort of hardware stuff that's robotics kind of things, but very much so the software side. And the platform, the automation platform that sits over the control system and allows the apps to come play with the control system. And once they put their hands around that opened the door. And it's in the right place. I mean, DSAT said that back in 2010 and got a pretty negative response. But the world's turned 180 degrees. And that, I think, is a huge enabler, a huge accelerator. And, if you want to talk about rate of adoption of automation currently and into the future, you better talking to the technology manager in a drilling contractor than a guy in an oil company.
Why do you think that is? Is it just because they're the ones with the physical platform?
Well, they have, they operate the site. So regardless of what the operator's doing, the drilling contractor is operating the site. They have the largest commitment of equipment. They got the biggest exposure as well. And I think that they've learned they've educated themselves on how to apply automation that brings benefits and minimizes risk. And in doing that, they're now controlling their own destiny in that. And I think that makes a big difference to someone else coming along and saying, well, you should automate, you should do this, and you should do that. And then looking and worrying about, well, what's the risk if something goes wrong? I mean, go back 15, 20 years and say that North American land drillers would be trying to drill themselves out of days. People would laugh at you. But today it's happening. I mean, you've produced some numbers about the minimization of emissions due to the growth in the rate of drilling wells, right? So, and you look as well, the drillers are contributing significantly to drilling longer laterals. We were in a debate the other day through IDC on 6-mile laterals. I mean, people are talking about those things. What do you need to do to get there? And the drilling contractors are a key part of that. But when you look at it, it means less rigs drilling for more production. So it's gearing up the amount of oil coming out of the wells, which actually drives less rigs per barrel, shall we say, if we turn it that way around.
It's actually a really interesting metric, is to be able to look at the number of rigs per barrel produced. Never thought of looking at.
Oh yeah, there are some plots out there that people are producing showing that. I think there was one the other day I was looking at. It was up 13%. The production per rig was up 13% in 2023, and I think they're expecting 15% in 2024. And the drilling contractors are contributing significantly to that.
Do you think that's what's led them to making the international purchases that have recently been made with KCA Deutag and Parker Wellbore?
I would think so. Yeah, because in the case of both those companies, the purchaser companies, they have developed technologies and methodologies, hard and soft, in North America that are bringing this huge value to their clients. And a bigger footprint globally where that hasn't happened gives them an opportunity to go and differentiate. And differentiation is the game to driving the number of rigs you're running. So yeah, and they'll have a huge impact. Both those companies, they got great capabilities. They've shown it in the US land, and they've got stuff they can take rapidly and apply. And I think it's going to shake up a bunch of people in the global community.
How much more vertical integration do you think we'll see with the drilling contractors then?
Interesting question. I think the one missing component is mud management. We got to get much, much smarter about mud management. It's a key to drilling performance. And first of all is how to measure it. I mean, a bloke measuring on a mud balance from the 1950s every hour is criminal. And a marsh funnel is as well. That was 1930s, I think. I think it's better to spit in the mud and figure out what the viscosity is than it is to use a marsh funnel. But seriously, there are people working on automated measurement systems, and I think it needs a bigger push. There's people with good systems techniques. It needs a bigger push and a recognition from operators. We actually want real-time measurements, and these are the real-time measurements we want so that we can actually take action before impairment or before MPT occurs, or even just inefficiencies occur. And I think that's the huge opportunity. And the drilling contractor typically brings a backyard. So he's got all this kit there. It's a matter of sensors and technologies, what he's been doing in other areas. So, he's taking sensor data and he's processing it through software systems, and he's giving advice to his driller to improve the performance of what he's doing. And so here it's just another feedback loop, but this time it's with the mud.
How much do you think the role of MPD will play into that as well as it becomes a more prolific service, especially within land operations?
I think MPD will become a standard. I think you see that already. There's significant uptake in MPD systems, and there is more upfront integration going on with the drilling contract. I mean, if you started the business today and you went to the government and said, hey, we want to go drill a hole in the ground and leave it open while we drill it, they're going to say not no, but hell no. So we kind of got grandfathered in with what we've got. I mean, what people did in the past and BOP stacks and well-controlled processes, absolutely. But MPD offers a technology and a response system that can outperform a human trying to monitor way too many things at once. I mean, then you have influx, automated influx detection systems, which from my understanding, are being very effective. And their methodology is to connect to the control system and keep the driller in the loop with a big button he can go hit. So he can stop the thing doing something, but it speeds up the reaction time when things start to go wrong that could lead to a well-controlled incident. I think as well that MPD has fantastic benefits for changing your well design so you can gain benefits there, but also from your rate of penetration because you can lower the overbalance in a controlled manner. I mean, people have been doing that in shales. Haynesville was quite famous for that. So yeah, it's got multiple aspects to it, and I think it'll become a standard piece of kit on the rig.
More of the offshore environment making its way, and what they do out there on high dollar deep water wells making its way to land operations.
Yeah.
Robert Essie says, what do you think would be the most valuable new sensor for LWD?
Ooh, the most valuable new sensor for LWD. I don't think I can answer that. Robert probably can answer that better than I can.
Just the comment that just came up, Brian says top of cement detection.
Well, yeah. Or even the quality of the cement, being able to measure when you run in, being able to measure the quality of the cement. And also over time, I think that's another aspect of the LWD is the tool. The tool can be used later than a CBL would normally be used. And therefore, if you can detect any deterioration in the cement while you've been drilling the well, it may be beneficial.
Another question here from Dave says, sorry, I joined late. Friday's not the best here in Indonesia, so awesome to have somebody joining from Indonesia. There are some really clever AI systems linked with real-time monitoring that facilitate real-time changes in ongoing operations. Not so much mechanical automation, but mechanical and procedural intelligence. How can we close this gap?
Hi, Dave. Yeah, challenging question. I think in the mechanical automation side, you're getting sensors. There's a lot of sensors on the mechanical equipment which actually give information about the maintenance of it or the status of it, and therefore the maintenance. And therefore you can add AI into preventive maintenance schemes. So instead of it being a routine, you can become predictive. And if your AI can then look and see some trends that are warning you that you're heading towards a situation which is going to be negative to the equipment, I think that's where people are applying it, I believe, and that's where it'll be beneficial. Another one is, and people have spoken to this. Pradeep Anyappa in our joint paper put this piece in there, and that is basically that if you have a automated racking system that tracks the drill pipe, it can know what the life cycle of the joints of drill pipe are that are in the stands in the racking system. And it can determine where it's going to put them back into the drill string to actually maximize the life cycle of that string. So there's being really clever in what your system is doing with the components that it's managing.
That's pretty impressive.
It's his idea. Wow. Yeah. It's in our paper. He contributed it.
Duncan says, I'm just dumbfounded that MPD is not a requirement. We only have 2 barriers and one failing and the other has a propensity to fail.
Yep. But like I say, I mean, if we went to do what we do today and asked permission, we'd probably be declined. As a startup business.
Very true. Duncan, once again, to answer Dave's question, he wants to join in here. We are under the false assumption that the new AI monitoring software is the answer to all problems. The old mud logging position that has disappeared of data engineer, whose only job was to watch the well, leaving the driller and the drilling engineers to do their other day job. Your thoughts, John?
Well, yeah, I think the process that the mud logger does is a real-time process that's very important. So they're gathering data. I think it's foolish to get rid of it, which I know Duncan has spoken about this before. But the question is how in today's world or in the modern world can you collect that data and then how can you process it? And I think I agree with him about AI. People are, they're smoking something funny sometimes when they talk about AI. And I think the important thing to get, and I hear people talking about this, is that AI can be a tool that works for you. I used the word slave earlier. I think that's the way you ought to look at it. It's a slave to do something with me or to do something to support me. And I don't always have to believe you. And so I think you still need the human intelligence in that loop. The question is, how can you accomplish what the mud logger delivered with data, or do you still need a person on the well site doing it? And, looking at cuttings is pretty specialist work. So that's my general answer to that one.
So this brings up a great point. I know something that we talked about the SP Digital Forum, which was the changing of job roles, and not just obviously the title of the position, but what those positions entailed. We talked about how a drilling engineer has changed or should be changing. How do we go forward, and what are some of the other positions that you think will fundamentally change in the future?
Without picking on, well,
you can pick on people. That's fine.
Not my name. I think a more general answer to that is adopting more sensors, adopting better sensors. And better can also mean higher frequency sensors. When you sensors, listening to Paul Pastusek last week, for downhole drill string dynamics, you got to have higher frequency sensors. So, people need to put in place the sensors that are needed to do the analysis in order to take the best decisions. Then when you do that, the analysis can be front-ended by software. But then the humans still remain in the world of looking at automation in the future. The humans still remain connected with the automation one way or another. If you look at the driller goes to supervisory control. The tool is doing something for him, and he knows what it's doing all the time, and he understands what it's doing, and he can switch it off. He can override it when he sees that it may be doing something that's not in the best interests of the operation. So I think, it's a shift to more supervisory control, and it's adoption of more and sensors with better attributes for the needs of processing data. And then you can start to transform things.
I think this is one of my highlights from that forum, which was the group I was with. We came up with, instead of calling them a rig manager, they were the anomaly manager, as to be, like you said, they're looking for when the system steps outside of where it should be, or something takes place that was not, taken into consideration in the design or planning phase, and then being able to handle that situation in whatever its capacity it might be. So
yeah, that's a very interesting look at it. And then you get into the term adaptive automation. So you have a human who's interfacing with a system that is automated. And in order to keep the human involved in what's going on, the system actually gives him back some tasks. So the system is telling the driller, these are your tasks to do. And then when something happens that needs his particular attention, the automation system takes those tasks back again onto itself and gives him the task which need the human to handle. And that way he is continuously engaged. When you sit there drinking coffee, doing nothing, reading the novel or whatever it is you're doing, and then suddenly the system says, I have a problem, you go, what the hell do I do? You know? So this is a principle of automation which has been used for quite some years. And it's a matter of the system keeping the human involved such that he has this situational awareness that he can act when he needs to act.
I think you were the one who said that. Isn't this what the pilots do, where the system regularly turns off the autopilot?
Yeah, somebody else said that, but yeah.
Maybe it was Matt or Maury.
Well, the other one is that United Airlines demands that their 777 pilots do a manual landing every month. That's the one where you go bump. The auto landing is where the engines are revving up and down and everything's smooth and it touches the ground so nicely.
Well, and now I will know for when that takes place. All right, John, we're coming here towards the end. Anything else that you would like to be able to put out there for the industry and everybody that's watching, something that they should know either about you or about the industry, or just anything you've got on your brain that you want to be able to share with us?
I think it's exciting times, and I think so. The sad thing is that the world, the media, has turned people against us, and now we see less people coming into the universities in the West are dropping off significantly in their intake for petroleum engineering, and these universities are starting to use different words to describe what this engineering is. My information is this is not happening in Asia. So in Central Asia and the Far East, and somebody said the other day in the Middle East, their universities are still filled with people to do petroleum engineering. And I think it's a big mistake, because we need petroleum engineers, we need drilling engineers. We need people who know how to drill and complete wells and intervene in wells. You know, depletion itself demands that we're going to have to drill up another 56 million barrels a day by 2030 just to offset depletion. So that's a huge amount. And also, if you look, the major oil companies that swung into their green orientation and went after wind farms and solar panels and all this stuff have shown that they are pulling back out of some of those, and they're rigorously turning up the wick on investment in oil and gas. So the oil and gas industry with the big players is in a renaissance. I mean, we're in great shape. So I think the big issue is to have people, to attract graduates to come into our industry, and they don't have to be petroleum engineers. We can take mechanical engineers. We can take industrial engineers. The industrial engineers I meet are smart people and well-versed in process and process improvement. So we need to really drive that we attract these people. We show them we are a high technology industry. I mean, landing your SpaceX in a chopsticks and things, what's the difference between that and drilling a 4-mile lateral to a very small target? The thing is, you can't see the lateral and the target. You can see Elon Musk doing his stuff. So I think it's very important. And I guess my last thing would be my own plug. Yeah, I've been in the industry nearly 50 years, and I'm planning to stay in this industry for another 10 years at least. I love it. I love it. I love what I'm doing. I work virtually. I travel around the globe. I'm here to help.
Well, we appreciate it. I know that I have learned a significant amount from you, and enjoy having you at all of the different events that we both attend. Um, I want to be able to throw this one up here. Johnny says, "Have you ever tried driving around a slippery corner in a car with cruise control on? On a decent car, the cruise control will disengage."
Hey, Johnny, go buy yourself a BMW M3 competition. When you hammer it into the corner with the brakes hard on at turn 5 at Road America, and it thinks you're not going to make it, it actually uses the brakes to take you around the corner. So
Well, we do have a couple more. I want to be able to throw this one. There's a great comment. Isabel says, "No stable jobs, I think, is the principal reason that people are losing interest in the oil and gas business."
yeah.
That's a tough one. Mike Louderbuck says, "Doug, could not agree more. I was told 10 years ago that if you want to know how the well is drilling, look at the shakers. And that's where you manage the drilling from."
Well,
Great
Calvin
comment.
Holt is pursuing that as a startup with his photographic system that does interpretation of what's coming over the shakers. And, what type of cuttings are you seeing in terms of, are they cavings or cuttings, and are they getting more, are they getting less, and things like that. So yeah, there is Calvin's doing a good job there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. John, thank you for being here. We're going to throw this up there for anybody who hasn't had the chance yet. Be sure to put in hashtag AIDRILLER for your chance to win some swag today. Do want to mention once again that no show next week. The week after that will be John Hike. Let me pull up. Tracy made me a nice little organizational thing. All right, here. So no show next week. The week after that, John Hike, who's going to be talking about U-turn horizontal wells. All right, it's going to be great. The week after that will be the IADC annual meeting, where I'll have that chance to be able to present there. So obviously, once again, no show. Do apologize. The week after that, David Ransom Wood, who's been banned from LinkedIn for his, outspokenness. Well, they can't ban him from coming on my show, which then goes on to LinkedIn. So doing a little end around there. So we'll have with him our post-election discussion, which he did with me 4 years ago. So we'll get to do that one again. I think last time, though, we hadn't had a decision on who the president was due to other factors. The week after that, December 6th, Michael Bohonik will be joining us. And then after that, Abraham Montez. So we have got an action-packed lineup for the rest of the year, and I hit the wrong button. I didn't even mean to hit that button. Went off the screen there for a second. So yeah, we've got action-packed, and we are working on the lineup for the beginning of next year. Not going to announce it just yet, but I have gotten the commitment from somebody very, very special to me that is going to be coming on to the show, as well as a list of very high-level people to be able to continue bringing in high-level people for the show. There we go. AIDRILLER, hashtag AIDRILLER. Thank you guys so much. Do appreciate that. As a drilling hand, the shakers, the first place I go when walking around the rig. Well, Bo, thank you for throwing that one out there.
Hey, David, before you do your ending, just want to say thank you very much for having me on. I do appreciate it, and I enjoy the way you run these shows. So yeah,
well, thank you.
You're doing a great job, man. I appreciate it. The people you bring on and the way you moderate and raise your questions. You're on the ball, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's become very observant to me that a lot of the industry events that we attend are becoming more and more commercial in nature, and the selection process as far as presentations and stuff, the integrity that the industry is putting forward is lacking. So once again, I'll put it out there for everybody who doesn't know. No one has ever paid to be on the show. I've only taken payment for people who wanted to be able to do the 1-minute commercial at the beginning. Other than that, nobody has ever paid to be on the show. The people that have come on the show are purely invite from myself and people that I think would provide a story, a technical presentation, or some level of information that is beneficial to our industry. And that's been the mission since the very beginning. And I can attest that we hold true to that. So please, if you're looking to be able to learn something about the industry on a weekly basis, Fridays for a couple hours, this is where it is. And promise we won't be pitching any crazy commercial products to you. And I've got a list of people that are trying to get on the show right now to be able to do just that, but won't do that to you guys. All right, let's add this to the stage. Yes, John, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a fan of the show. It does mean a lot to me. All right, let's click over here. Let's see who our winner of the day is. It's again AIDRILLER, the sponsor for today. And our winner is, oh, as even said Gibson Reports on there. Oh my gosh. Okay, Duncan, who is a former guest on the show, is now a winner. All right. I would have been terrible if it would have been me. All right, guys. Like I said, no show next weekend. A week after that, John Hike. Anything else from you, John?
No, everybody have a good weekend, take some time off.
That's a great idea. All right, guys, until next time, thank you guys so much. And as always, know your industry.